Good evening. This is Terry. Some people know me as QSMX Pilot, and we're here to talk about a memorandum of law. This paper hasn't been submitted yet or filed, of non-judicial foreclosure. And there's a lot here. And I have Gerard and Robert in here, and they're both going to put in their parts. I'm going to get us started. I'm going to say the purpose of this memorandum is to reveal the fraud upon the people committed by the mortgage companies, and municipalities. Said fraud differs little between the two. So I'm going to let Gerard take it over from here.
Okay, so this is about the fraud of the securitization of mortgages. So let's go down to we can make sure you read these footnotes, because that's a big part of this. Getting to know, what we're talking about, that will help. So the most important thing when you go through that is this clarification. All that other legal language you'll learn, but the clarification kind of like sets it in stone what's going on here. So I'm going to read that. Were these mortgage companies and municipalities able to legally foreclose on the property, they would do so by filing the foreclosure in the state court to acquire a judgment and then bring it to the sheriff for collection. The problem is that they cannot produce a proof of claim and fiduciary authority over the property. And without those two affidavits, they cannot open a lawful court case to provide due process necessary for lawful seizure of the property in rem. So the bar, banks, and municipalities and mortgage cartels devise a plan to bypass due process. So what they're doing is they're doing a non-judicial foreclosure in rem, and you'll see that on their notices. You'll see in the corner in rem. So number 5 is the footnote. See, in rem, number 5, there's a footnote. This is how we do the papers. 5, action in rem. In the civil and common law, an action for a thing, an action for the recovery of a thing possessed by another. That's the technical definition of in rem. So let's move down now and skip some of this other stuff. You could make sure you read this.
You can read about your Constitution here. That's straight out of the Constitution.
Right. That's word for word, just the Constitution there. But we kind of distilled it down. That's what's good about these papers. And we're going to get Robert to go through the flow chart of how they take your property from you. And basically, all this stuff was covered on the top, but that's
right.
This is the distillation of it. Go ahead, Robert.
Notice of default's the first one. Failing to file an affidavit of default proving adherence to due process constitutes fraud. Trustee substitution, that's a federal offense. Assuming fiduciary authority without filing federal form 56, which is proof of fiduciary authority under oath within the federal district, constitutes fraud. Notice of sale, federal offense. Again, all these will be federal, I believe, from now on. Acting on a claim without filing a federal form 4490, proof of claim under oath within the federal district, constitutes fraud. Title transfer, federal offense. Transferring title without due process constitutes fraud. Any court that provides a summary judgment enters into a conspiracy under color of law and escalates the crime to RICO. The next one is eviction, federal offense. Any court granting an eviction after being fully informed of the conspiracy to defraud enters into the conspiracy, and that brings us into disposition, federal offense. And that would be any sheriff executing a court order to evict after being fully informed of the conspiracy, enters into the conspiracy himself. And then you go into statutory crimes, but that's already covered up above there. So we're going to go on down to the part of the conclusion, I believe. Is that correct?
Right, the conclusion. And I'll take up the conclusion. So, in conclusion, the securitization of mortgages and tax foreclosure is a growing white-collar swindle that is illegal primarily because of antitrust law violations, consisting of specific violations such as usury, fraud, conspiracy, forgery, and robo-signing, and violates our Fourth Amendment right to be secure in our property, Fifth Amendment right to due process, Seventh Amendment right to trial by jury, and our Seventh Amendment right to natural law courts. So, go and see if this is exactly what's happening, and see if what we're saying is not true. Educate yourself, because until we get educated, it won't stop, and we need to stop it. Because look at they're doing just like they said in the Bible, where they ate the heart out of the widows, because who's defaulting on these properties? It's mostly older folk and widows who can't afford to pay the taxes anymore. So that prophecy is coming true right in this day as it was in Christ's day. There's nothing new under the sun. It's just more prevalent than it ever was. Thank you very much for coming, and we look forward to having you at our next memorandum dissection. Thank you.